Bonsoir, monsieur le secrétaire d'État.
Bonsoir.
Merci beaucoup de nous recevoir avec Ulysse, ici, à l'ambassade des États-Unis à Paris, alors que dans un mois, les leaders du monde entier ont rendez-vous à Glasgow pour la COP26 qui s'annonce cruciale. Je sais que vous en avez parlé cet après-midi avec Emmanuel Macron. Compte tenu de la tension qui a régné ces dernières semaines entre nos deux pays, comment s'est passé cet entretien avec Emmanuel Macron?
Bon, c'était très sympa. On a parlé comme des amis que nous sommes. Je le trouve très fort, très visionnaire sur le sujet du climat. Et c'est sur ce sujet qu'on a parlé.
Pas de tension cet après-midi?
Comment?
Pas de tension?
Non, non, non. Aucune tension. De mon avis, vous devez demander à votre président, mais pour moi, c'était une parole très, très aimable.
Le climat était bon entre vous et le président français?
Oui, le climat entre nous deux était bon, mais le climat mondial, c'est difficile à ce moment.
Alors justement, on a l'impression vraiment qu'on est dans une course contre la montre. Clock is ticking.
C'est vrai.
On voit des feux de forêt gigantesques aux États-Unis, en Europe, en Grèce, en France, des inondations catastrophiques. Alors, est-ce que vous êtes vraiment inquiet, vous, personnellement? Et qu'est-ce que l'on peut faire concrètement pour que la vie de nos enfants, de nos petits-enfants ne soit pas menacée et pour que la planète soit sauvée?
Il faut que nous réussirons à Glasgow.
À la COP26.
Oui, oui. Je parle en anglais parce que c'est un peu plus facile
Allez-y.
à cause des mots techniques ou quelque chose comme ça. Mais enfin, le moment de Glasgow, c'est la plus grande depuis Paris, depuis qu'on a fait l'agrément ici à Paris. And for us, for all of us in the world, this is the moment that the world has to come together. Now, we're not going to get everything that we need to do in Glasgow. Some countries are still resisting moving. But almost every country in the world will raise its ambition and raise it very significantly. At this moment, after the summit we had in Washington with President Biden, we now have 55% of global GDP committed to hold the Earth's temperature increase to 1.5 degrees centigrade. That's pretty extraordinary. What we need now are countries from the other 45% to join. Because if we don't reduce emissions enough between 2020 and 2030, we can't achieve net zero by 2050. So this is critical. It's life and death for many people. And the young folks around the world are asking the adults to just be adults. Do what you're supposed to do. Get the job done.
Vous pensez qu'il n'est pas trop tard pour agir?
No, il n'est pas trop tard. But we have to act now. The scientists give us, 9 years now. It was 12 years, 3 years ago, but we had a president who, without any rationale, without any legitimate rationale, without any evidence, without any science, without any economic legitimacy, pulled out of the agreement. And it was terrible. It's terrible for many of us in America. But Americans on the local level continued to do what we needed to do. So 75% of the new electricity in the United States in the last few years is all renewable. People don't realize that. So we're moving forward now. President Biden has set a very strong goal, 50 to 52% reduction of emissions over the next 10 years. So these 10 years are critical for all of us. But if some nations stay outside of a significant effort, that could destroy the ability to have 1.5 degrees limit. So people all over the world need to demand accountability in their countries.
La semaine dernière, vous avez dit que les leaders mondiaux devaient, je vous cite, arrêter leurs conneries vu l'urgence climatique. De quelle connerie, encore une fois, c'est votre terme, de quelle connerie parlez-vous?
We have countries that are saying they need to deal with climate, but they're unwilling to reduce the emissions. It's hard to talk about multilateralism and about global responsibility and about saving humanity, but then not take the measures necessary to keep 1.5 degrees alive. So we have to be truthful with people. They expect the truth, and they deserve the truth. And that's one of the reasons why there's anger, a sort of populist anger at the street level in countries all around the world, because people feel that the deal is not straight. And now they want something more honest. So it's up to us to step up. Not every country has to do the same thing that we're doing. I'm not suggesting that a less developed country, a genuinely less developed country, we have to help those countries. We have to put finance on the table. We have to put technology on the table. We have to do things that are extraordinary, because this is an extraordinary challenge. Unfortunately, some have not yet made the decision to do that, and that's why I say let's cut to the chase here. Let's get real and do what, as I said, young people want us to behave like adults. Adults are supposed to be responsible. They're supposed to make decisions. They're supposed to get the job done.
Mais, Monsieur le secrétaire d'État, est-ce qu'il y a un risque d'échec à Glasgow? Est-ce qu'il peut y avoir une impasse à Glasgow et qu'il n'y ait pas l'unité?
Non, je ne crois pas. Je ne crois pas. Je crois qu'à Glasgow, tout le monde fera quelque chose. C'est la question que si c'est assez. Il faut faire assez. Il faut faire ce qu'il faut faire. And right now, it's not clear that everybody will do that. Now, I hope in the next 4 weeks, this will change. Where we are today will not be where we are when we go to Glasgow. That's the possibility. And so we have to keep pushing. We have to keep asking. We have to keep demanding.
Mais les États-Unis sont les plus gros émetteurs de CO2, de gaz à effet de serre.
Le deuxième.
Par habitant. Par habitant. Par habitant.
Par habitant, OK.
Par habitant. Ça veut dire que vous avez aussi à faire de gros efforts.
Oui, il faut. Mais ce n'est pas par habitant. Mother Nature doesn't measure par habitant. Mother Nature measures by total, by the whole picture. So there's nobody upstairs who's counting, oh, this is the French contribution. This is the Chinese contribution. This is the American contribution. It's the total amount of emissions. And that's the problem, because the total amount of emissions are now providing a force in our storms, a melting of the Arctic, a melting of the Antarctic, a warming of the ocean, more than it has changed in millions of years. The chemistry of the ocean is changing more than it has in millions of years. We're seeing possible tipping points in the Arctic, the Antarctic, and the coral reef. Now, I don't know the answer for sure that that's the tipping point, but I can tell you, if the scientists are telling me we're close to it, we have an obligation to move. We have an obligation to assert the precautionary principle of governing. Now, no scientist will tell you that they know with certainty where that tipping point is. But when I hear that there's a tipping point, which could result in the total melting of the Antarctic if we don't do things that are necessary, I know what the calculation is of what that means to us on planet Earth.
Mais concrètement, Monsieur le secrétaire, est-ce que, par exemple, les Américains sont prêts à utiliser moins d'essence, à réduire leur consommation et utiliser moins de pétrole en général?
Les Américains sont prêts à changer complètement. By 2035, we will only have electric cars in the United States. By 2030, 50% of the vehicles sold in America will be electric, not internal combustion engine. And General Motors and Ford Motor Company have announced they will not sell internal combustion engine cars after 2035. I believe that's happening. I think it's going to happen. Just today in Financial Times, there was a story about the rate at which this conversion is going to take place. Today, it's only 1%. But they know and they can pre-calculate what is going to happen as everybody shifts. And everybody is shifting. In France, you're shifting. In Germany, Volkswagen, Mercedes, Audi are producing now electric cars, and they will diminish the number of cars that they're going to sell that aren't electric. So You know, by 2035, the plan of President Biden is that in the United States, our entire power sector will be carbon-free. We are the largest oil and gas producer in the world, and yet we are announcing we will be carbon-free by 2035. So President Biden is offering leadership. That's why we are keeping the 1.5 degrees alive. We have to do these things, but other countries have not stepped up to make that kind of a pledge. So we need to bring everybody on board. And again, I repeat, the developed world, 20 countries, equal 80% of all the emissions. So I'm not sitting here saying every small country in the world can do what we're doing. No, they can't. We have an obligation. All of the wealthiest countries of the world need to help the less developed world, the emerging economies, to emerge. And that's why today, with President Macron, we met with sovereign wealth funds from around the world, with new sovereign funds coming to the table, saying they are going to help invest in these countries so that we can turn the emerging nations into good actors with respect to their energy sources, with respect to their emissions. Everybody can join into this effort.
Avec Donald Trump, les choses étaient claires. L'Amérique était sortie de l'accord de Paris. Aujourd'hui, est-ce qu'on peut dire, est-ce que vous êtes confiant, est-ce qu'on peut dire que l'accord de Paris sur le climat n'est plus menacé? Ou est-ce qu'il y a encore un risque?
Bon, je ne peux pas déclarer pour tout le monde, enfin, mais je peux dire que l'accord de Paris, il faut faire plus que Paris maintenant. Il faut plus parler seulement de l'accord de Paris parce que malheureusement, si toutes les nations qui ont signé Paris et ratifié Paris, s'ils faisaient tout ce qu'ils ont dit qu'ils vont faire, même là, le chauffage du planète sera hors de 2,5 et demi ou de plus que 3 même. Alors, we have to do more than Paris. Paris doesn't get the job done now. And the reason is that we have been raising emissions. So we have to turn the corner in these 10 years. It's doable. What's tragic about, I mean, it's not tragic yet, but it could be, is that as we sit here tonight, as we are discussing this, this is technically feasible. This is doable. We could make the changes. And nobody's saying you have to sacrifice your life. This is not a choice between protecting the environment and having a strong economy. Not at all. We can have a stronger economy by doing the things we're talking about. Building a grid in the United States will require electricians and plumbers and pipe fitters and steel workers and heavy equipment operators. All these people will have jobs to lay the new transmission lines, to build the artificial intelligence, to bring together the computer systems that run an efficient energy system. So there's so many positive options. The fastest growing job in the United States last year, wind turbine technician. Third fastest growing job in America last year, solar panel installer. There's a future of our economies. We've done transitions before. We went from ancient times to modernity. We then had coal. We then had the Industrial Revolution. We then had the technology revolution. Now we're in the new revolution, the energy revolution. And this is the biggest transformational opportunity economically since the Industrial Revolution itself. We're going to create millions of jobs in doing this. And we will make life cleaner, healthier, less cancer, less particulates in the air that send our children to the hospitals in the summer. We spend $50 billion a year on that in America. Does that go into the cost of our fuel? No. So we have to get real. That's what I'm talking about when you talked about the conneries, et cetera. The whole issue here is whether or not we're going to do what is smart. Every economic analysis shows it costs less to respond to climate now than it does not to and to wait to the future. Okay. We spent billions of dollars just cleaning up after storms in the last years. Come on. That is just not the way to build the future.
La Chine, qu'est-ce que vous attendez de la Chine? Et est-ce qu'on peut à la fois travailler avec la Chine en confiance pour le climat alors qu'il y a un risque de confrontation entre Pékin et Washington?
Well, we have to. We have no choice. We have to be able to.
C'est possible?
Oui, of course c'est possible. But it takes decision. President Xi and President Biden had an excellent telephone conversation September 10th. And both of them agreed that it would be better if the United States and China were able to come together and reach an agreement. And so we're going to continue. I've been to China twice in the last months. We've had more than 20 plus meetings virtually. We are going to meet again in the next week or so. We're going to meet together, maybe in Europe in the next weeks. And my hope is we will find some agreement where we can do what is necessary. China is critical to this, absolutely critical. 28% of all the world's emissions come from China. We're 11%, we're number 2. The EU, if it were a country, one country would be number 3, but it's not. So India's number 3. And then, Russia and others follow. We have to, all 20 of the most the most successful economies, the biggest economies of the world, 20 of them have to come together, and all of them have to make the decision. If all 20 did what's necessary, we win this battle. It's that simple. If the 45% not yet committed to 1.5 will make stronger commitments, we can win this battle. And the next 10 years are the critical years to defining that victory.
Encore une question, Monsieur le secrétaire d'État. Vous parlez de coopération ce soir et de l'importance de la coopération, mais il y a eu des tensions, on en parlait, entre les États-Unis et la France. Vous qui êtes francophile, francophone, on l'entend ce soir, quels mots vous pouvez employer ce soir et qu'est-ce que vous pouvez dire aux Français, en français, pour les rassurer sur la solidité de l'amitié entre la France et les États-Unis? Certains, ici en France, ont parlé d'une trahison des États-Unis au moment de la crise des sous-marins.
Ce n'était pas une trahison, c'était une absence de communication. Et puis, et le secrétaire d'État, Tony Blinken, a dit ça. Alors, ce n'est pas moi, je ne suis pas hors de l'école pour disant ça. We have a relationship with France that is so much bigger than this moment of what happened with respect to the lack of communication that has been defined already. And I found today, talking with President Macron, an understanding that we have so much to work on. France is a great leader. France historically has written so much of history, and we together have written so much of our history together. And our commitment to values, to freedom, to liberty, to justice, to a strong Europe, to our ability to be able to work together is much, much stronger than any of these differences of the last few days. And I think you will see that very quickly. President Biden looks forward to meeting with President Macron, and I'm absolutely confident that the bigger issues we have to work on about nuclear weapons, about cyber warfare, about climate, about the economic dislocation of the world, about the challenges of the less developed world. We have a lot of work to do, and we can't get lost in a momentary event that I think we will get past very quickly.
Mais tout de même, John Kerry, il y a eu cette phrase de Jean-Yves Le Drian, « Entre alliés, ça ne se fait pas ». Est-ce que vous avez compris la colère des Français?
Mais oui, absolument. And President Biden asked me about it, and I told him and expressed.
You told Joe Biden that it was not the right.
He asked me. He said, "What's the situation?" And I explained exactly. He had not been aware of that. He literally had not been aware of what had transpired, and I don't want to go into the details of it, but suffice it to say that the president, my president, is very committed to strengthening the relationship and making sure that this is a small event of the past and moving on to the much more important future.
On peut rétablir la confiance.
Absolument.
Merci John Kerry.
Merci à vous.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci.